Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. And today's video, what I wanted to do was I wanted to talk about kind of, it's a new year in Flesh and Blood. We had insane growth last year. And I think coming into the game, a lot of people might have saw a lot of national events, Christmas might have came around the corner, whatever. And maybe you want to get into a new TCG. Maybe you come from Magic, maybe you come from Yu-Gi-Oh, Digimon, whatever. Or maybe you haven't played TCG at all and you're wanting to get into Flesh and Blood, but you don't know where to start. This video is going to kind of give you a quick breakdown of what you should be getting. I'm not going to go through Flesh and Blood as a whole, but I'm going to give you the best place to spend your money and where overall you probably should start as a player, not only because it'll have a low barrier of entry, but also when you decide you want to put more money into the game, you'll already have the baseline of what you need and what you probably should have going into the future in order to be successful once you get really serious. So for me, in Flesh and Blood, there are several sets that you can go through, right? As we look at the Heroes of Fab is probably the best thing to look for you. The new set that's about to come out is Everfest, right? Which is what's called a supplementary set. It basically means that the set by, like in most card games, right, you can build a deck off of certain sets. Well, in these supplementary sets, they're basically used to, like it says, supplement the current heroes. So you can't build a whole deck off of them. You have to get one of the mainstay sets that's not a supplementary set. So the most recent one before this was Tales of Aria. You had Monarch, Crucible War, which is another supplemental set, Arcane Rising, and Welcome to Wraith. So you had 1, 2, 3, 4 full sets in Flesh and Blood so far. So you're looking at all the sets and you're like, where do I spend my money? Where should I go? What should I do? Do I buy a booster box? Do I just buy packs? Should I just net deck a cheap budget deck online? All are decent options. Where I would personally start is I would start with a Blitz deck. In Flesh and Blood, you have 2 game modes. You have 3 counting Pit Fight, which is like almost like Commander Magic. But you have Blitz and Classic Constructed. Blitz is with 40 cards, and you can have up to 2 of each card with each card's color. Or you can play Classic Constructed, which is 60 cards where you have 3 of each color in a certain card. Blitz is played with 20 life points, and Constructed is played with 40. So Blitz is more of a new player-friendly game because it has less cards. You don't need as many cards to play, and it's more of like the quick play version of Flesh and Blood, but it also allows you to play with the same technical rule set and mechanics as the Classic Constructed. So for Blitz, the great thing about Blitz is they already have pre-made Blitz decks. Now, most time pre-con decks aren't the best in the world with most TCGs, right? But for Flesh and Blood, one of the great things about Flesh and Blood when I first got to it is the Blitz decks are actually pretty decent. Like, you're not going to go win a crazy event with them, but they're not like trash decks like you would see in other TCGs or something like that. They're really good and really useful, and you honestly can take the core Blitz deck and just build upon it. It already has a lot of the common cards that you need. 2 sets in total made Blitz decks. So you have Monarch that made their Blitz decks for their 4 respective heroes, right? And then you had Tales of Aria, which made Blitz decks for their 3 respective heroes. There's 7 total Blitz decks spanning over 2 sets. Each Blitz deck is worth around $12 US, as it says here, 16 Canadian, 20 AUD, 20 NZD, and then 12 for EU. So what I would suggest doing is pick a hero that you most identify with, which we'll get into in a second, and then pick a hero that speaks to you, because that's the great thing about Flesh and Blood is you kind of get behind a hero look and feel and archetype more so than just certain cards, right? But you can't go wrong with any of these decks. Monarch and Tales of Aria both were very strong sets, very good sets, and definitely something that you can build on with these Blitz decks. Personally, for me, what I would pick if I was y'all, I would, for the Monarch set, all 4 of these would be good, but the main Blitz deck I would pick personally is Prism. Prism is a Sculptor of Light, and she's an illusionist hero, and she can kind of play in more aggro style, or she can play a more kind of control, not super control, but kind of a more slow-paced mid-range style, right? And her Blitz deck is basically, you get the cool Librarian card, which is really cool. There are tutor cards. You won't use this later in the game. It's not as important, but for this, it's really a really cool looking card. You'll get a full set of equipment to play with. You get a bunch of her Heralds. Her Heralds are mainly the aggro portion of the deck. But you also get a couple rares in Ode to Wrath and Merciful Retribution, which you will definitely use these later in order to play with some of her auras. She also has Prismatic Shield, which is a really good one, and Phantasmify. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rares in this deck, which all these will use. Even when you have a fully decked out Prism deck, you will definitely still use Merciful Retribution, Ode to Wrath, and you will definitely probably still use Prismatic Shield. Phantasmify you may or may not use. Most people don't use it in a full built deck, but 3 of these rares you already have that you're going to use in your final deck, even months down the road when you have a fully decked out Prism deck, no pun intended. So Prism deck is really good. It shows you exactly what's in the deck. That's the great thing. If you go on the Fab website and you click on these decks, you can see exactly what's in the deck. And it helps you build out, the mechanics of Flesh of Blood, and it's really fun. But Prism, again, can go aggro or more mid-range. She's a very versatile hero, and she's really good in the meta right now, so you'll have a lot of the core cards you need in order to start building her as a deck. The next deck I would probably go for is Oldhim. Oldhim is control, right? He is a defensive hero. You can probably tell he's ice. He's got a huge shield, right? A big, huge axe. In these things, and he's in the Tales of Aria set, right? And his blitz deck is really control based. They don't have a full decked out thing here, but he has a really control based meta. So if you really like playing slow, playing defensively, waiting for your opponent to make a mistake, kind of fatiguing them out, he's a really good deck for you to try. And I really suggest using him in the Tales of Aria set. The final blitz deck is Briar, Warden of Thorns. Briar is really big aggro deck. She also can turn a little bit mid-range, but she's really the aggro deck of the format. She's had some recent bans and recent erratas, so make sure you, if you come from a card game, you know what those are. Make sure you kind of look those up and make sure you understand her the best. But she's really good for aggro players or people that like to, play very aggressive and kind of take it to their opponent, so to speak. So the top 3 I would pick obviously are Briar, Prism, and Oldhim. I would buy one of each of those decks personally. It costs you $30, and you already have a good set core of cards that you can use. When you buy Oldhim and Briar, keep in mind that they can use some cards from the older set. Oldhim is what's called a Guardian, so he can use Guardian cards, and Briar is a Runeblade, so she can use Runeblade cards, but they are limited a little bit more in the cards they can use. Prism can use light cards, or illusionist cards. She also can use generic cards. All 3 of them can. So they're all 3 really good heroes that I really suggest using. Some people will tell you to go back and use the original heroes from Welcome to Wraith, but it's going to be a little bit harder with the set going out print. There's not like pre-con decks for everything. It's really hard to get them. And personally, I would just focus on the newer heroes. I think it'd be better bang for your buck personally. But these are all the heroes. Tales of Aria was the most recent set. And as you can see, I suggested 2 of them in the most recent set. And then Prism is from the Monarch set, which was the second to last set that came out, which also had some really strong heroes. If you want to look at Chain, that's another good aggro one to look at. He has a blitz deck as well. Highly suggest looking at him. That'd be really good for you. So after you buy your blitz deck, you're like, okay, what do I go from here? Like, I've got my blitz deck. I've played a couple of blitz games. I'm really liking the game. Now you can go start talking about, buying a booster box, right? Booster boxes range right now from the 70 to like 115 range. Be careful with booster boxes. And I'm going to say this because I've seen LGSs do it and I get it, local game stores, but like some local game stores dramatically overprice what these boxes are actually worth, right? Like today, I'm not going to say the store or where it's at, but I went to a local game store and I saw a Tales of Aria edition box for like $125 unlimited. Make sure you look up what the MSRP is on these boxes. TCG Player is a good place to go to buy boxes that are a little bit more priced, right? If you can support your local game store, support them, but make sure it's close to the MSRP amount and they're not jacking up the prices on you. If you're going to buy a booster box, my personal opinion is you should buy Welcome to Wraith. I know I just suggested all those heroes prior to, but Welcome to Wraith, I would either buy Welcome Wraith or Tales of Aria. Welcome Wraith gives you a lot of great generic cards that you're going to need, and it's really good for that. And then Tales of Aria is going to give you a lot of the newer cards that I think are going to be really useful in the next coming sets because they're going with this more elemental theme. So I would honestly look for the first set and then look for the most recent set in order to fill out. If you just really want to crack some packs but also get some good cards, everyone loves doing that. definitely look at Welcome to Wraith and Tales of Aria personally. Those are the two booster boxes I would look at. But the good thing about Flesh and Blood is you can kind of, on the Fab website, they have deck lists, so you can see what good decks are doing what, and then try to, figure out what is the best set from there. Like I said earlier in the video, just make sure you don't buy a Crucible of War or an Everfest booster box thinking that when it comes out in the next couple weeks, when you're thinking that you're going to be able to build a deck off of those boxes, because again, those are supplemental sets that are supposed to just basically give added toys to the decks that are already made. You can't build a deck off of those two boxes. That's not what they're meant for. So just be really careful when you go to buy your first box that you don't buy one of those two sets. You can buy it afterwards to get great cards, but you're not gonna be able to build a deck off of those boxes. But yeah, that's what I suggest. Like I said before, just kind of wrap it all up. I would go for Blitz decks, specifically with Oldhim and Briar from the Tales of Aria set. And I would also go with Prism from the Monarch set. I'll give you links to try to give you links to the some of the Blitz decks down below, but really you can just go on Amazon. I would try to go to your local game store first. If not, TCG Player is really good. Amazon will have them. Your risk of getting a bum Blitz deck is slim to none over a booster box, so I don't think it'll be too big an issue, but that's what I would go with. And then when you go about a first booster box, I would personally go with your Welcome to Wraith or Tales of Aria. Those are my two suggestions. But for anyone that's new to the game, let me know what your thoughts are. What turns you to Flesh and Blood? What do you like about it? What are some of the challenges you see with it? Is it kind of a cool game for you to see, or is it more of something that seems a little bit daunting? Let me know, because I always want to try to be able to explain the game to newer players the best way I can. And getting new player feedback is the best way to do that. The good thing is you can literally get into the game for $12 and have fun at $12. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars in order to be good at the game or have an amazing deck. You honestly could spend $50 on certain decks and have a very competitive deck, especially for like a local game store tournament. You could do really well at. But yeah, let me know what you think of the content. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other content if you want more in-depth stuff on Flesh and Blood. I do a lot of deck techs, a lot of other stuff. I really appreciate everyone that tunes in the channel. Hopefully you have a great rest of your week. And yeah, I'll see you all next time on TCG Talk. Thank you all so much.